In a universe where strength is a number, where warriors scream until the sky splits, and the machines that measure them burst into sparks, there is one rule that everyone, from the lowest farmer to the emperor of the cold, has always understood. If it is strong enough, you can kill it. They were about to learn how wrong they were. He is not a Saiyan. He is not a Namekian. He is not, in any sense that a doctor would sign off on, alive. He has been shot, stabbed, bisected, decapitated, and set on fire, and every single time he stood back up, laughing. He also, and this is important, really likes guns. What happens when the most powerful, most obnoxious, most absolutely unkillable monster ever poured into a red coat falls out of the dark and lands in the middle of the bloodiest fight in the galaxy? Frieza is about to have a very bad quarter. This one was written by me, a single deranged love letter to two of the funniest things ever put on the internet, smashed together at maximum velocity. And when this is over, and someone is definitely going to be crying, you already know the drill. Down in the comments, name me a universe and name me a character. Any world, any face, anyone. The next one to get dragged screaming across the multiverse could be entirely your fault. Now, let the shadows off their leash.
Vegeta was talking to himself again. This was a problem, because Vegeta was not, strictly speaking, alone. He stood on a jagged spur of blue Namekian rock, arms folded, cape of self-importance flapping in a wind that only seemed to blow when he was being dramatic. Below him, the green ocean rolled. Somewhere over the horizon, Frieza was murdering an entire species, one village at a time. The Dragon Balls were still in play, and immortality, glorious, permanent, unearned immortality, was still theoretically on the table. Vegeta had a plan. Vegeta had a plan. The plan was going great. Soon, he muttered, I will have all 7 Dragon Balls. I will wish for immortality, and then I will kill Frieza and Kakarot and every single person who has ever made me feel small, and I will finally be the strongest. Hey, Vegeta! Vegeta's eye twitched. No. Hey, Vegeta, you're not real. Nappa, large, bald, mustached, and roughly 40% transparent, floated cheerfully into view over Vegeta's shoulder, glowing a soft, obnoxious blue. Ghost Nappa had died several weeks and 1 planet ago. Ghost Nappa had not let this stop him. Vegeta, do you ever think about how you killed me? Every day, Vegeta hissed. It's the one nice memory I have left. Rude. Ghost Nappa drifted upside down. Hey, Vegeta, wouldn't it be crazy if something even scarier than Frieza showed up right now, like right behind you? That's not funny, Nappa. I'm not being funny, Vegeta. The ghost's grin went a little glassy. I'm being helpful. And that was when Vegeta noticed the shadow. It was his own shadow, cast long across the rock by Namek's 3 sons, and it was doing something shadows do not do. It was getting up. The darkness peeled off the stone in a slow, wet, deliberate way, like a stain deciding to have opinions, and it pooled and rose and thickened until it stood taller than Vegeta, taller than Nappa, and 2 burning red points opened inside it, like someone lighting a cigarette in a cave. Vegeta, to his eternal credit, did the smart thing. He powered up, spun, and fired a ki blast directly into the center of it at point-blank range. The blast went straight through. It punched a smoking hole clean through the middle of the shadow, hit the cliff behind, and detonated. And the hole filled back in, casually, the way water fills back in around your hand. Oh, said the shadow, in a voice like a landslide having a wonderful time. I like it here already. The darkness resolved. A red coat, a red hat, orange glasses over a grin with too many teeth in it, all of them the wrong shape. The thing that had climbed out of Vegeta's shadow tilted its head, looked the Prince of all Saiyans up and down, and made a small, delighted, deeply insulting sound. Well, would you look at this? Alucard purred. A little angry man in football pads. And he shot me. Right in the chest. First thing. Didn't even ask my name. He spread his arms wide, coat billowing off nothing. I think I'm going to enjoy this dimension enormously. Vegeta's scouter. Because Vegeta still, against all learning, or a scouter, clicked to life to read the newcomer's power level. There was a soft electronic beep, then a faster beep. Then a rising continuous whine like a kettle achieving enlightenment, and then the scouter on the side of Vegeta's head exploded in a puff of sparks and plastic, taking a small amount of his eyebrow with it. That was the good one. Ooh. Alucard's grin widened past the point where a face should be able to support it. Was that your little number machine? Did I break it? What did it say? What was my... He affected a gasp of mock delight, one gloved hand to his chest. Was it over 9,000? How do you know that phrase? Vegeta whispered, horrified. I don't. It just felt right. Alucard looked genuinely pleased with himself. This is a good place. I've been here 40 seconds, and I've already been shot and confused a man about his eyebrow. Back home, everyone's so tense. Ghost Nappa floated closer, phasing partway through the vampire's shoulder to inspect him. Hey, Vegeta! I like this guy. Of course you do, Vegeta snapped. You have the survival instincts of a paper towel. You're dead. And you're talking to me, Nappa said triumphantly. Who's the crazy one now, Vegeta? Huh? Alucard's red eyes flicked to the ghost, then back to Vegeta, then to the empty air where the ghost was not, from his perspective, entirely convincingly located. He said nothing about it. He simply filed it away, the way a predator files away that one of the gazelles is having a nervous breakdown. So, the vampire said, strolling a slow circle around Vegeta, boots making no sound at all on the rock. Little angry man, tell me something. This planet, it reeks. It smells like a slaughterhouse that's proud of its work. Somebody out here is killing a lot of people very efficiently, and they're enjoying it almost as much as I'm about to. He leaned in, and his voice dropped into something soft and awful and genuinely, for 1/2 second, not funny at all. Point me at the strongest thing on this rock, and I promise I'll leave your eyebrow alone. Vegeta was a lot of things. Cowardly was not one of them. Insecure, sure. Loud. Constantly one insult away from a complete emotional collapse. But not a coward. He drew himself up to his full modest height, met those red eyes, and sneered. The strongest thing on this planet, he growled, is going to be M.E. Once I get my hands on the Dragon Balls and wish for immortality, I'll be unkillable. I'll be eternal. I'll be... immortality. Alucard stopped circling. Something moved across his face. If Vegeta had known him better, he would have recognized it as the single most dangerous expression in the vampire's entire repertoire, sympathy. Oh, you sweet, stupid little man. You want to be immortal. He crouched down to Vegeta's eye level, elbows on his knees, hat tipping back, and for a moment he looked almost kind. Let me save you a few centuries of disappointment. It's garbage. It's the single worst thing that has ever happened to me, and I've been shot in the face by a Nazi child. You wish for immortality, and you spend the next eternity waiting, begging, for literally anything in the universe to be strong enough to put you down. And nothing ever is. He straightened up, and the softness curdled straight back into the grin. Which is exactly, he said, why I'm so excited about this planet. Because it stinks of somebody who just might be. He turned toward the horizon, toward the far column of smoke where the villages were dying, and inhaled through his nose like a man at a bakery. There, that's the one. That's the good stuff. He glanced back over his shoulder. Thanks for the directions, football. I didn't give you directions. You gave me your face. It's very expressive. And Alucard sank back into the ground, coat first, pouring downward into Vegeta's shadow like ink down a drain. Gone in under a second, leaving only the smell of gunpowder and old churches, and a Prince of all Saiyans, standing on a rock with half an eyebrow, a dead scouter, and a ghost. There was a long silence. Hey, Vegeta, said Ghost Nappa. Don't. That guy was way scarier than you, Nappa. Krillin was having the best day he'd had on Namek, which meant he had only nearly died twice. He, Gohan, and Dende, the small, nervous Namekian child who had attached himself to their doomed little expedition, were picking their way across a rocky flat toward the next Dragon Ball, moving low and fast and quiet, which was Krillin's entire combat strategy at this point in his life. Move low, move fast, be somewhere else when the strong people arrive. It had kept him alive for 29 years, and he saw no reason to change a winning formula. Krillin, Gohan whispered. Do you think Dad's going to get here soon? I hope so, buddy. Krillin scanned the horizon. Because between you, me, a magic green kid, and my rapidly diminishing will to live, we are not exactly the A-team out here. I heard that, said Dende. You were meant to. That was when the ground in front of them, a perfectly ordinary patch of Namekian shadow beneath a perfectly ordinary rock, sat up and became a man in a red coat. Krillin screamed. It was not a dignified scream. It was a scream he had been saving up for a while, and it came out at a pitch that made Dende wince and a small burrowing animal several meters away simply give up and die. Oh good, more of you, said Alucard, brushing shadow off his sleeve. Are you the strong ones? You don't smell like the strong ones, you smell like, he sniffed, fear, and a small amount of citrus. Why do you smell like citrus? It doesn't matter. Krillin had backpedaled directly into a boulder and was now trying to become one with it. Who are you? What are you? Please don't kill the child, take me instead. I'm mostly used up anyway. Krillin, Gohan said, delighted. He came out of the ground. That's so cool. Alucard's head swiveled toward the boy. Everyone tensed, and then the terrible red grin softened, by a degree, into something almost avuncular. Yeah, the vampire admitted. Yeah, it is pretty cool, isn't it, kid? I've been doing it for 100 years and it still gets a reaction every time. He crouched to Gohan's level. You've got good taste. What's your name? Gohan. Gohan. Alucard nodded slowly, as if committing it to a list. Little scholar. All right, Gohan, here's a life lesson, no charge. See the bald one having the panic attack? He jabbed a gloved thumb at Krillin. That's the correct amount of fear to feel around me. He gets it. Learn from the bald one. I have so much to teach him, Krillin wheezed, from inside the boulder. You're not going to kill us? Dende asked, very quietly. Alucard rose back to his full height and looked down at the three of them. The terrified man, the earnest boy, the trembling green child, and for a moment the grin went away entirely, and there was just the coat and the hat and two red eyes doing the math. No, he said, and sounded almost disappointed about it. There's no fun in it. You three are running from the thing that's making this planet smell like a graveyard. I only want to meet the thing you're running from. He tipped his hat. But if it makes you feel better, stay behind me. It's about to get loud, and I'm told I make excellent cover. He paused. Also, I'm going to need one of you to keep a count for me later. A running tally. You'll understand when it happens. A count of what? Gohan asked. Somewhere far to the north, a scream that was not human and not Namekian rolled across the sky. The sound of Frieza, who had just been informed by a subordinate that there was an anomalous energy signature on the planet, and that the scouter reading it had, quote, caught fire and then wouldn't stop caring. Alucard's whole body seemed to lean toward the sound, like a compass finding north, like a dog hearing the can opener. Oh, he breathed, and every tooth in his head was showing. There you are. And in the shadow of the boulder, Krillin, bald, terrified, and possessed of the finest survival instincts of any man in the galaxy, made a small, resigned noise and reached for a rock to hide behind. Krillin owned count, 0, but he can feel it coming. The thing about walking toward Frieza on foot is that you have a lot of time to think, and Alucard did not, as a rule, enjoy thinking. Thinking was for the long nights back home when there was nothing to shoot and nothing to bleed, and nobody worth the ammunition. So instead of thinking, as he crossed the cratered green flats of Namek with the smoke column growing fatter on the horizon, Alucard did what he always did to pass the time. He talked, to no one, loudly. And that's the other thing about immortality nobody warns you about, he was saying, to a rock, is the waiting. You'd think eternity would be all castles and glory and beautiful women fainting into your arms, but no, it's waiting. It's standing in a hallway for 60 years, because your master's grandniece is still deciding her feelings. It's paperwork. Do you have any idea how much paperwork a national vampire generates? I once shot a filing cabinet just to feel something. He kicked the rock. It vaporized a small hill. God, I hope this Frieza person is worth it. I got my hopes up for a Saiyan, and he turned out to be a divorced accountant in shoulder pads. Behind him, at a cautious 80 meters, the exact distance Krillin had calculated to be close enough to benefit from cover, far enough to run, the three survivors crept along in his wake. Is he still talking to himself? Dende whispered. He hasn't stopped since the boulder. Krillin whispered back. I don't think it's for us. I think we just happen to be near it. I think it's kind of nice, Gohan offered. It's like having a really scary radio. Ahead, Alucard stopped. He'd felt them before he saw them. 5 power signatures arranged across the flat in a loose, confident line, radiating the specific smug energy of people who have never once in their lives been the underdog. And as the vampire crested a low rise, he got his first look at the Ginyu Force, and for one long, genuine moment, the grin fell off his face and was replaced by something like awe, because they were posing, 5 of them, an enormous red-headed slab of muscle with his fists on his hips. A tall blue one and a shorter white-haired one, back to back, finger-gunning at the sky. A small green four-eyed one who barely came up to the other's knees, doing his level best. And out in front, purple-skinned, horned, hands thrown wide in a spread-legged stance that hid absolutely nothing, a captain. Special, bellowed the purple one. Beam, went the others. Cannon, there was a beat. That's the wrong one, Captain, said the white-haired one, in an accent. Force, Ginyu Force. The captain recovered smoothly, striking a new pose, one leg up, arms crossed. You'll have to forgive us. We've been doing a lot of these lately, and they start to run together. Alucard stared at them. His mouth had come slightly open. This, he said reverently, is the greatest thing I have ever seen. You all just stand like that, in front of each other, on purpose, and nobody's embarrassed? He pressed a gloved hand to his heart. I've spent 100 years trying to be dramatic, and you 5 have humiliated me in under a minute. I love you. I'm going to kill all of you, but I love you. The big red one, Rikum, squinted at him. Rikum doesn't know who you are, but Rikum likes your coat. Thank you. I made it myself, out of a nun. There was a small pause while everyone decided not to ask. The captain, Ginyu, stepped forward, and here was a subtle problem, because Ginyu was a professional, and professionals check the readings. He tapped his scouter. The scouter, sensibly, refused. It made the sound of a machine that had seen its friend die on Vegeta's face and wanted no part of this. Ginyu tapped it again. A single number flickered up, then a second number. Then the scouter displayed, in tiny green letters, the phrase, "Please don't." And then it, too, exploded, taking a chip of the captain's horn with it. Okay, said Ginyu, calmly, blinking soot out of his eyes. Jace, what did yours say? The white-haired one, Jace, looked down at his own scouter, which had also just detonated, and then looked at the smoking remains in his palm, with the expression of a man reading a very upsetting text message. It said a lot of things, Captain, Jace said faintly, and then it said no and jumped off me head. He's got no reading, said the blue one, Birder. That's not possible. Everything's got a reading. Oh, I've got a reading, Alucard said cheerfully, spreading his arms so the coat flared. It's just that your little machines take one look at me and lose all interest in their careers. Happens to a lot of things. Scouters, priests, the occasional Iscariot agent. He waggled his eyebrows at nothing in particular. A shocking number of nuns. Rikum is confused and slightly aroused, Rikum announced. That's the correct response, Alucard said warmly. That's exactly the correct response. You and the bald one back there really get me. He jerked a thumb over his shoulder toward Krillin, who was so far away by now he was basically a rumor. See, the trouble with your captain is he wants to measure me first. He wants a number. And I've got to tell you, Big Purple, size of the number has never once in the history of the universe correlated with how good the experience is going to be. It's about technique. It's about enthusiasm. And gentlemen, the grin came back, wide and terrible. I am very enthusiastic. Guldo, the little green one, had been quietly, furiously winding up the entire time, 4 eyes squeezed shut in concentration. Guldo had a power. Guldo could stop time, for as long as he could hold his breath, which, given that Guldo had the lung capacity of an asthmatic toddler, was not a period of time you could get a mortgage on. But it was enough. It was always enough. Guldo stopped time, scurried behind the man in the red coat, and telekinetically wrenched 4 jagged spears of Namekian rock up out of the ground, hovering them an inch from the vampire's spine, front, sides, and one aimed with real artistry directly up. Then Guldo exhaled, time resumed, and drove all 4 spears home at once. They went through Alucard, all of them, through the chest, through the back, through both sides, and the 4th one, Goldo would be proud of this one for the remaining 9 seconds of his life, punched up through the vampire from below in a way that made even Raccoon go, "Ooh, no." Alucard looked down at the 4 stone spikes jutting out of himself. "Well," he said, "someone was raised in a barn." He grabbed the lowest, most personal of the spears and slid it out of himself with a wet, unhurried, deeply theatrical sound, holding it up to inspect, entirely unbothered by the fist-sized hole it left, which was already knitting shut in a boil of shadow. "You know, back home there's an entire organization of angry Catholics who've been trying to do exactly this to me for 100 years, and even they had the decency to buy me dinner first." "He's not dead," Goldo whispered, all 4 eyes enormous. "Missed a lot of my important bits, too," Alucard added, tossing the spear away. "And I've got a lot of important bits. Ask around." "He's not dead, Captain. I heard you, Goldo." And this was the moment the day turned, because Alucard reached under the red coat and drew the cassol. It was too big. That was the first thing everyone noticed. It was a silver handgun, the length of a man's forearm. Absurd. Obscene. A gun designed by someone who had heard the concept of gun described to them by a very excited liar. It should have been comical. It was not comical. When Alucard leveled it, the temperature on the flat seemed to drop, and the 5 members of the most feared mercenary unit in Frieza's empire felt, all at once, the specific ancient terror of small mammals who have just realized the shape in the sky is not a cloud. "Now here's how this works," Alucard said, and his voice had gone low and delighted and awful, the voice of a man who has been bored for 100 years and has just been handed a present. "I'm looking for your boss, the one who's been making this beautiful, disgusting planet smell like a mass grave, and one of you is going to tell me where he is." He thumbed back the hammer. "The rest of you get to be my warm-up, and believe me, gentlemen, I have been waiting a very long time for a good warm-up." Goldo tried to stop time again. He got about half a breath in before Alucard shot him, and the thing about being shot by the cassol is that it does not respect the concept of a little bit. Goldo did not die dramatically. Goldo did not get a speech. Goldo simply, comprehensively, stopped existing above the collarbone, and his 4 eyes went out one at a time like someone unplugging a lamp. There was a silence on the flat. "Aw," said Ricum. Ricum liked Goldo. He did Ricum's taxes. "You people file taxes?" Alucard said, genuinely thrown. "You're a death squad. Everybody's got a file, mate," said Geese grimly. And then the Ginyu force, what was left of it, stopped posing and started fighting. It went about how you'd expect. Birder, the blue hurricane, the self-proclaimed fastest in the universe, came in first, a streak of azure moving faster than Krillin's eye could track from 80 meters back. He was, to be fair, genuinely, astonishingly fast. It did not matter even slightly. Alucard let him land the first 40 hits. Let him, the way you let a child win at arm wrestling, standing there with his coat drinking the blows and reforming, grinning wider with each one, and then he simply reached out at a speed that was not speed so much as decision, caught Birder by the face, and introduced the fastest man in the universe to the ground at a velocity that made the ground apologize. "Faster," Alucard confided, leaning down over the crater, "is not the same as harder to catch. That's the mistake everybody makes. You want to be hard to catch? Be disappointing. Nobody chases the disappointing ones." He straightened. "Ask my master. She stopped chasing me years ago." Jice went pale, paler, and did the sensible thing, which was to turn around and rocket into the sky screaming for the captain, which left Ricum. And Ricum, enormous, cheerful, dim, and utterly without fear, because he had never in his life met a reason for it, cracked his knuckles and grinned. "Ricum!" he bellowed, striking his signature pose. "Ultra!" Alucard shot him in the mouth. Said Ricum. "Sorry," Alucard said. "Not sorry. You were about to name your attack, and I have this rule. It's a good rule. It's kept me entertained for a century." He fired again, and the cassol's rounds. Blessed mercury cord. Alucard had explained the metallurgy to a nun once at great length while she died. Went through Ricum's incredible durability, like the durability had personally insulted them. The rule is, nobody gets to finish naming their move in front of me. Not the Nazis, not the Catholics, not the delightful purple people. It's rude. It suggests you think you're going to have the time. Ricum, who had survived things that had killed planets, went down. It took most of the clip. But he went down, and he went down surprised, which for Rikum was a whole new experience. The whole flat was quiet now. 2 of the 5 were dead. 1 was a crater, 1 was fleeing into the upper atmosphere, and from 80 meters back, over the ringing silence, came the small, odd, traumatized voice of a 9-year-old. "Krillin," said Gohan. "He's so strong." "Yeah," said Krillin, who had watched the entire thing from behind a rock with his hands over Dende's eyes and his own eyes very much open. "Yeah, buddy, he is." He swallowed. "Remember when I said stay behind him? I want to formally upgrade that. Never leave the area behind him. Marry the area behind him. That is home now. Should we start the count?" Gohan asked. He said someone's got to keep a count. Krillin looked at the carnage on the flat. Then he looked at himself. Alive, unexploded, unowned, for the first time in what felt like weeks. "No," he said slowly, with the dawning, fragile hope of a man who has spent his whole life as the universe's punching bag and has just, possibly, found someone strong enough to stand behind. "No, I don't think the count's going to be about me this time." Krillin owned count, still 0. Krillin is, for the first time in living memory, cautiously optimistic. This never ends well. High above, in a hovering white pod flanked by a nervous honor guard, a small figure with cold red eyes and impeccable posture watched the energy signature on the flat wink 2 more of his elite soldiers out of existence and set down the teacup he had been, until this moment, enjoying. Frieza did not raise his voice. Frieza never raised his voice. That was for people with something to prove. "You know," he said pleasantly, to the room in general, "I do try to be a reasonable employer. Competitive benefits, excellent dental. I even let Rikum keep those dreadful poses in the company handbook, because morale is important." He steepled his fingers. "And in return, I ask for so little, just that when I send 5 of my very best to look into a minor scheduling anomaly, they come back, with their tops attached." He rose from his hovering seat, and the temperature of the pod dropped 10 degrees. "Ginyu, take me down there. I should like to meet the gentleman in the red coat myself." "Sir, the readings." "Yes," Frieza said, and smiled with all the warmth of a tax audit. "I saw. Every scouter within a mile of him has resigned. How interesting." He turned his cold, delicate, genuinely for the first time in a while, curious face toward the flat far below. "It's been such a long time since anything was interesting." Down on the ground, feeling it, Alucard turned his face up toward the descending pod and breathed in deep, and the grin that spread across him was the grin of a man who has been served, at long last, after 100 years of waiting, a meal that might actually be worth eating. "Oh," he said softly, "finally." The pod touched down with the delicate, expensive hiss of a machine that cost more than most planets, and for a moment nothing came out of it. This was on purpose. Frieza understood, better than anyone in the galaxy, that power is 90% scheduling. You do not walk out immediately. You let them wait. You let them look at the door. Then the door opened, and a small white figure walked out onto the corpse-strewn flat, with his hands folded politely behind his back, stepped delicately over what was left of Guldo, and wrinkled his nose. "Oh, it's ghastly down here," Frieza said. "How do you people fight in this? There's a texture to the air." He produced a handkerchief from nowhere, dabbed at nothing, and put it away. "Right. Which one of you charming refugees liquefied my accounts department?" Alucard, who had been leaning against a rock, enjoying himself, pushed off it and strolled forward, coat pouring around his boots, and the 2 of them met in the middle of the field of Frieza's own dead, and looked at each other. And here was the thing neither of them said out loud, but both of them clocked in the first half-second, the way 2 apex predators clock each other across a watering hole. "Oh, you're one of me. You," Alucard breathed, "smell incredible. I'm sorry?" No, don't apologize. It's a compliment. It's the best compliment I've got." The vampire walked a slow circle around the tyrant. And for once he wasn't mugging for an audience. He was studying, genuinely, hungrily. "Everyone else on this rock smells like meat. Frightened meat, angry meat. That little bald pastry back there smells like citrus and regret. But you," he inhaled again, eyes half-lidded, "you smell like something that's killed so many things it stopped counting. You smell like me. God, do you know how long it's been since I met something that smelled like me? I'm going to be honest with you, Frieza said. This is the single most upsetting flirtation I've ever been subjected to, and I once had dinner with my father. I have that effect. I can see that. Frieza tilted his head, genuinely intrigued despite himself. The scouters were dead, but Frieza had never needed scouters. Not really. He could feel power, the way a shark feels blood, and what he was feeling off the man in the red coat was making the ancient reptile part of his brain sit up very straight. It was not a number. That was the disturbing thing. Every other power he'd ever met had been a number, a ceiling, a finite thing he could position himself above. This one had no ceiling. This one just kept going down. You're not a Saiyan, Frieza said slowly. You're not a Namekian. You're not anything in my files. And I have everyone in my files. So what precisely are you? Alucard stopped circling. He tipped his hat back with one gloved finger, and the grin he gave Frieza was almost tender. I'm the thing your species invented gods to protect you from, he said. And then the gods turned out to be a disappointment. So you're stuck with me instead. He spread his arms. I'm a vampire, sweetheart. A real one, not the sparkly kind. The kind that used to be a man, and did something so appalling on a battlefield 500 years ago that death took one look and said, "No thank you, you keep him." He leaned in. And I have spent every single one of those 500 years looking for one thing. One little thing. "Do enlighten me," said Frieza, who was now discreetly powering up. "Somebody strong enough to make it stop." Frieza paused. For just a moment, the corporate smile flickered, because that he actually understood, on a level that surprised him, the boredom of the top, the specific loneliness of having killed everything worth killing. He'd felt the edge of it himself, on the long Empire nights, and he hated that this ridiculous man in the coat had said it out loud. So he did what Frieza always did when something made him feel a real feeling. He decided to kill it. "Well," Frieza said brightly, and raised one finger. "Far be it from me to leave a customer unsatisfied." The death ball formed on his fingertip, a compact orange sun, the exact attack that had cracked planets, that had ended civilizations before breakfast, condensed down to the size of a marble, and humming with enough energy to unstitch Namek from the sky. And Frieza flicked it, casually, the way you'd flick a crumb off a tablecloth, directly into Alucard's chest. The explosion took the top off a mountain range. It lit the green sky white. 80 meters back, Krillin threw himself over Gohan and Dende, and felt the heat wash over the rock they were hiding behind. Felt it cook, and thought, with the weary certainty of a man who has watched a lot of strong people die, well, there he goes, back to being the Count about me. I knew it. I knew it. The light faded, and in the center of a glassed, smoking crater a quarter-mile wide, something was laughing. It started as a chuckle. It built. By the time the smoke cleared enough to see, it was a full, roaring, delighted, head-thrown-back howl of a laugh. And Alucard was standing in the middle of the devastation, with his coat gone, his arms gone, half his torso gone, his entire lower body a churning column of shadow and screaming red eyes and reaching hands. His released form, level 1, the seals on his gloves blazing, and he was reassembling as he laughed, shadow pouring upward, bone and muscle boiling back into place, the coat reweaving itself out of the dark, and the whole time, he did not stop laughing. "That's it!" he roared, as his jaw finished growing back mid-sentence, teeth first. "That's the one. Do you have any idea how long it's been since something actually blew my arms off? Do it again! Do it again! I'll pay you! What do you want? I've got money. I've got a manor. I've got a small blonde master who'll be furious. But she'll get over it." Frieza's smile was gone. Not angry. Frieza didn't get angry, not at first. Anger was for amateurs. What crossed Frieza's face, for the first time in a very, very long time, was the thing he had spent his whole eternal life making sure he never had to feel again. Concern. "That should have killed you," he said. "Everything should have killed me," Alucard said, flexing his newly regrown fingers. "It's honestly the defining feature of my whole personality." "No, you don't understand." Frieza's voice had gone very quiet, very smooth. The pleasantness stretched thin over something colder. "That is not a thing that survives. That is a planet killer. I have ended entire species with less. I flicked it at you, and you're standing there asking for a refill." He rose slowly off the ground, and around him the air began to distort, to scream, as he reached down into the reserves he almost never had to touch. "You're going to force me to transform. Do you have any idea how tedious that is? Do you know how many people I've had to kill specifically so that nobody would ever see me do it?" "Ooh," said Alucard. "You've got a transformation. You've got forms." He clapped his gloved hands together like a child at a magic show. "I love a form. Show me the forms. Show me all the forms. Take your time." Frieza transformed. It was not quick, and it was not pretty, and it was not, whatever Frieza would later claim, dignified. There was a great deal of screaming, and the bioarmor cracking, and the horns retracting, and the whole grotesque, beautiful, terrible metamorphosis into his sleek, small, white and purple final form, the one almost nobody in the universe had ever seen and lived. The one that meant Frieza had, for the first time in decades, decided that something in front of him deserved his full attention. And when it was done, the power rolling off the little white figure was enough to make the ocean recede, enough to make Namek's 3 suns seem to dim, and even Alucard, even the vampire, went quiet for a moment and just looked. "Okay," Alucard said softly. "Okay, yeah, now we're talking." His grin came back, but it was different now, sharper, hungrier, more real. "You've got no idea, do you? You've got no idea how long I've wanted to meet something that made me nervous." "I am about to end you," Frieza said, and this time there was no pleasantry in it at all, just the flat, cold, absolute certainty of the strongest being in the universe, in a manner your friends will be finding for weeks. Promises, promises. And then the 2 most powerful, most condescending, most bottomlessly arrogant monsters either universe had ever produced hit each other, and the top of the world came off. It was not like the Ginyu fight. The Ginyu fight had been a man walking through children. This was 2 forces of nature that genuinely could not tell which of them was going to win, and the planet was the collateral. Frieza was faster. Frieza was, in raw output, stronger. Every blow he landed was a planet cracker, and he landed them by the dozen, faster than the eye could follow, driving the vampire through mountains, through the crust, into the mantle and out the other side. He hit Alucard hard enough to kill him 100 times over, and the 100th time worked exactly as well as the first, which was to say, it made Alucard laugh and reform and come back, because that was Alucard's whole terrible thesis, delivered with every regeneration. "You can hurt me as much as you want. There is no amount. I have already checked, and I will still be here. You're not winning," Frieza snarled, hurling the vampire into the sea. "Why aren't you winning? You can't even hurt me." "I don't need to win," Alucard called back, rising out of the boiling water in a column of shadow and eyes. Both guns out now, the silver Kasol and the long black jackal, and the jackal's first round took Frieza's arm off at the shoulder, an anti-freak round the size of a wine bottle punching clean through a body that had shrugged off everything the mortal universe had ever thrown at it. "I just need to outlast you." And sweetheart, the arm was already regenerating on Frieza's end, because Frieza had his own tricks. The 2 of them healers, as much as killers now. 2 immortalish things trying to out-attrition each other over the corpse of a dying world. I have never, in 500 years, lost a game of who gets tired first. And for one cold, vertiginous moment, arm knitting back, blood in his mouth for the first time in living memory, staring at a thing that could not stay down. Frieza the Emperor felt the floor of the universe drop out from under him. He felt mortal. "What are you?" he whispered. Alucard lowered the guns, just slightly. And for a moment, just a moment, over the ruin of a planet, blood and shadow steaming off him, the manic grin softened into something almost gentle. Something that had waited 500 years to say this to somebody who could actually understand it. "I'm what's waiting for you," he said quietly. "At the top. I'm what you turn into when you win every fight there is. This," he gestured at himself, the coat, the shadow, the endless red eyes. "This is the prize, Your Majesty. You claw your way up over the bodies of everything in the universe, and you get to the very top, and you find out the top is just this. Just you and the quiet, and nothing left strong enough to make it stop." He raised the Kasul again, and he was smiling. But it wasn't a cruel smile now. It was almost kind. "I've been up there a long time. It's lonely. So believe me when I say, from one monster to another, I mean it as a mercy. Frieza stared at him, and then Frieza, being Frieza, threw back his head and laughed, high and cold and genuinely delighted, because if there was one thing the Emperor of the Universe was not going to do, it was take philosophy lessons from a goth in a hat. "Oh, you magnificent lunatic," he said, wiping his eye. "You actually think you're going to do me a favor." The air around him detonated as he powered up past the point where the numbers stopped meaning anything, past 100%, into the place he'd sworn he'd never have to go. "Let me tell you what's going to happen instead. I am going to find the one thing that keeps you here. Everything has a leash, darling. Even you, especially you. You reek of it. And when I find yours, I am going to cut it, and then we'll see how much you're smiling." Far, far back, behind a rock that was now more or less lava, Krillin peeked out at the two apocalypses trading blows on the horizon, and felt the exact bottom drop out of his cautious optimism. "He said leash," Krillin whispered. "Gohan, buddy, the scary one just said he's gonna find the red one's leash." "Is that bad?" Gohan asked. Krillin watched a mountain die in the distance. "Everybody's got a leash, kid," he said grimly, and for the first time it wasn't self-pity in his voice. It was something older and colder, the voice of the guy who's always survived by knowing exactly how these things go. Even the unkillable ones, especially the unkillable ones. And when Frieza finds it, he swallowed, start the count. Just not the one you think. Krillin owned count, 0. And for the first time, Krillin is more afraid of that number staying at 0 than he's ever been of it going up. Here is a thing that Frieza understood about power that almost nobody else in either universe did, and it was the reason he had ruled for as long as he had. The strongest thing in the room is never the most dangerous thing in the room. The most dangerous thing in the room is whatever the strongest thing is afraid of. He'd built an empire on it. You don't rule a galaxy by being the biggest fist. There's always a bigger fist eventually, some Saiyan brat or cosmic accident. You rule it by finding what every big fist is attached to. The pride, the family, the one dead planet they can't stop thinking about. Everybody's got a string, and Frieza had spent his whole long life learning to pluck them. And as he stood in the ruin of Namek, arm regenerating, trading blows with a thing that would not die, he did the only genuinely intelligent thing anyone had done all day. He stopped trying to kill the vampire. He started listening to him. "And that's the other thing nobody tells you about being unkillable," Alucard was saying, mid-fight, because Alucard narrated his own fights the way some men narrate their fantasy football, is that you stop being able to do it whenever you want. "Oh no, there are rules. There's a whole hierarchy of how off the leash I'm allowed to get, and I don't get to pick, there." Frieza caught a fist the size of a shadow and smiled his slow, cold, terrible smile, because the monster had just, in the middle of bragging, told him exactly where the leash was. "A leash," Frieza purred. "You keep saying that. Off the leash. How off the leash I'm allowed to get. A small blonde master who'll be furious." He ducked a shot from the jackal that took a moon-sized chunk out of the sky behind him. "You keep mentioning her. This master. You've said it 4 times now. Do you know what I think, you beautiful, chatty idiot?" Alucard's grin flickered. "Just slightly. Just enough. I think," said Frieza, "that you can't actually let all the way go. The truly frightening version of you. The one at the very bottom of that lovely dark hole. Unless she says so. I think that for all your ancient horror and your 500 years and your loneliness at the top," he was delighting in it now, circling, tasting it, "you are, functionally, a very large and heavily armed dog, and somewhere out there is a hand that holds the lead." The temperature dropped. And, for the first time all day, Alucard stopped smiling. "Don't," he said. And it wasn't theatrical anymore. Wasn't the boredom comedy or the innuendo or the trailer villain rasp. It was quiet. It was, underneath everything, protective. "You joke about a lot of things around me, Your Majesty. You've been very entertaining. But you're not going to joke about her." "Oh, I'm not joking," Frieza said gently. "I'm planning. There's a difference. Jokes are for people who've given up." He rose into the air, red eyes gleaming, and now his whole posture had changed. The fight had become research, and Frieza had never lost at research. "You came here through a rift. A tear between worlds. I felt it open. I feel everything that happens on my planets. It's terribly invasive of me. And if a rift can bring you here," he spread his hands and let the sentence hang in the ghastly green air, "well, it can send me there, can't it? 80 meters back. From behind the lava rock, Krillin made a small, strangled noise. "He's not gonna," Krillin whispered. "Gohan. Gohan, tell me the space tyrant is not about to go rift-hopping to a whole other universe to find one lady so he can win an argument." "That seems like a lot of effort," Gohan said reasonably. "That's exactly how you know he's gonna do it, buddy," Krillin said, with the terrible wisdom of a man who has watched powerful people make catastrophically petty decisions his entire adult life. "Nobody does anything sensible when their pride's involved. Nobody. Look at Vegeta." Some distance away, standing on a rock he had not moved from in 3 hours because watching this was somehow better than his entire life up to this point, Vegeta was in fact still there, half an eyebrow and all, being narrated at by a ghost. "Hey, Vegeta," said Ghost Nappa. "I know. Hey, Vegeta, the red guy's got a mom." "It's not a mom, Nappa, it's a master. There's a difference. It's a whole gothic thing." "Vegeta, why don't you have a master?" "Because I'm the Prince of all Sai. Why am I explaining myself to a hallucination?" Back in the center of the apocalypse, Alucard had gone very, very still. This was, historically, the most dangerous thing he could do. When Alucard was talking, when Alucard was laughing and shooting and pulling stone spears out of his own organs and complaining about paperwork, you were, relatively speaking, fine. When Alucard went quiet, when the grin dropped and the red eyes stopped dancing and the whole coat seemed to lean in, that was when the people around him historically stopped being people and started being weather. "You want to go to my world?" Alucard said softly. "You want to find my master?" "I want to find your leash," Frieza corrected pleasantly. "Your master just happens to be holding it. Nothing personal." "Well," he considered, "a little personal. You did dissolve my accounting department. Let me tell you what's on the other side of that rift, Your Majesty." Alucard began to walk toward him, unhurried, and with every step the shadow at his feet spread wider, darker, deeper, and the red eyes in it multiplied. Dozens, then hundreds, the souls of everyone the vampire had ever devoured opening their eyes at once. "There's a little island. It's cold and it's damp, and the food is a war crime. And on that island there is one blonde woman with a sword and a cigar and a stare that has personally made me, the no-life king, behave myself for 30 years. He was smiling again now, but it was the worst smile yet, the fond and murderous smile of a monster describing the one thing in all creation he actually loved. "You think she's my weakness, you poor, elegant, doomed little lizard. She's not my leash." He stopped, inches away, towering, the shadow behind him now the size of a cathedral. "She's my reason. And you have just told me, out loud, that you'd like to go and threaten her." The grin split his whole face. "Do you have any idea what a gift you've just given me?" Frieza, to his enormous credit, did not flinch. Frieza had stared down gods. "I have an excellent idea," he said. "You've been begging me all day for a reason to let all the way go, and I've just handed you one." He smiled back, cold and bright and unafraid. "I'm not stupid, darling. I want the real you, the one at the bottom of the hole, because once I've seen it, once I know its shape, I'll know exactly what to send through that rift, while you're busy being a very good boy over her corpse." Something in the air changed. Alucard's smile faltered, not from fear, from recognition, because Frieza had done the one thing, the exact one thing, that Alucard's entire 500-year existence was built to punish. He'd made a real, credible, specific threat against the woman who held his leash. And there was a protocol for that. There had always been a protocol for that. Alucard could not release his final restriction on his own whim. No matter how bored, no matter how much he wanted to, that was the leash. That was true. Frieza had that part right. But he could ask. And 30 years and one whole universe away, on a cold, damp island with terrible food, a blonde woman in a Victorian suit set down her tea, went absolutely rigid, and felt her monster call. Alucard closed his eyes. "You want to see the bottom of the hole," he said quietly. "You want to know its shape, so you can hurt her." He exhaled. "All right, Your Majesty, all right. You've earned it. I'm going to ask for permission. And do you know the terrible thing? The really, truly terrible thing?" He opened his eyes, and they were burning. "I think she's going to say yes." And across the void between two worlds, faint and cold and absolutely furious, a woman's voice that no one on Namek could hear but that Alucard heard as clearly as a bell, spoke 4 words that had ended monsters before. Situation A. Cromwell approved. The shadow screamed. Every red eye in it opened at once. The souls began to pour. Out of the ground, out of the coat, out of the vampire's chest. A black tide of eyes and hands and open mouths spreading across the ruined green flat. And Frieza, Emperor of the Universe, felt for the second time that day, and the second time in his entire life, the specific and unfamiliar sensation of being the smaller animal. "Oh," Frieza said. "Oh, there it is." "Releasing Control Art Restriction System," Alucard's voice boomed, from everywhere at once, from every mouth in the darkness. Situation A. The Cromwell invocation is in effect. "Beautiful," Frieza breathed, backing up despite himself, powering up to his absolute ceiling, the ground cracking, the sky itself beginning to come apart. Show me. Let me see what I'm going to send through that rift while you're grieving." "Restrictions lifted," roared the dark, "to level," and the rift tore open above them both. Not Alucard's rift, not the one he'd come through. A new one. Jagged, wrong, orange-lit, torn open from the other side by something that had been watching this whole time. Something that had felt the Cromwell invocation ripple across the void and understood, with the cold, institutional certainty of an organization that had spent 100 years planning for exactly this contingency, that the monster had just been given a reason to go home. And through the tier, backlit, descending onto the ruins of Namek with a bayonet in each hand and a smile full of the love of God, stepped a small, grinning, silver-haired figure in round glasses and a priest's collar, with a scar down his face and 13 sacred blades between his fingers. "Amen," said Alexander Anderson, cheerfully, to the two most powerful beings in two universes. "Now which one of you heathen bastards has been ringing the wee monster's dinner bell?" There was a silence on the flat. Alucard, half-released, Cathedral of Shadow frozen mid-scream, turned his burning eyes upward, and across 500 years and one torn-open universe, his ruined face split into a grin of pure, delighted, homicidal joy. "Judas Priest," he breathed. Frieza looked at the regenerating vampire, then at the descending priest, then at the 13 blades and the second, hostile rift and the fact that there were now, apparently, two immortal lunatics from the same nightmare universe standing on his planet. "I'm sorry," Frieza said, to no one, with the exhausted calm of a middle manager watching a merger go catastrophically wrong. "I was told this was a minor scheduling anomaly." 80 meters back, behind a rock, Krillin watched a third apocalypse arrive, watched the priest and the vampire and the space emperor all size each other up over a dying world, and slowly lowered his forehead until it rested against the warm stone. "Gohan," Krillin said, muffled. "Get Dende. Get your dad. Get anybody." He didn't lift his head. "Because I have been keeping the wrong count this whole time. It was never going to be about me." He finally looked up at the three monsters and the two tiers in reality and the planet quietly ending underneath all of it, and started, very quietly, to laugh. The laugh of a man who has survived his whole life by knowing exactly how bad things are, and has just been handed a situation genuinely beyond his ability to measure. "Start the count at one planet," Krillin called out to the universe in general, "and I don't think it's gonna stop there." Above him, Alucard leveled the Kasul at Frieza, the jackal at nothing, kept one burning eye on the grinning priest, and laughed and laughed and laughed as three separate world-enders and two torn universes closed in on a single square mile of dying green rock. "Oh," the No-Life King said, to all of it, to everything, happier than he'd been in 500 years, "Now we're talking." Krillin owned count 0. Krillin survived. Krillin always survives. Krillin is, statistically, the safest man in 3 universes. He is also the only one who understands how much trouble everyone is in. Frieza wanted to find the leash. Instead, he tore open the door, and something on the other side has been waiting 100 years for an excuse to walk through it. 2 universes are now bleeding into one dying planet, and there are 3 immortal monsters standing on it. Want to see what happens when Alucard, Frieza, and Anderson are all in the same fight, with Goku still not even here yet? Say the word in the comments. And while you're down there, name me a universe, name me a character. The next one to fall through the rift is entirely your fault.